Hey everyone, welcome. This is the White Table Talk podcast. Welcome and thank you for being with us. This is a podcast where we'll have conversations with young adults, for young adults, and Gen Z. My name is PJ. I'm excited to dive in with you. Hey, welcome to the White Table podcast. We're here with another episode. Sorry we've been out for a few weeks, but we do a internship at our church, and so we've been consumed with high school students in our office every week. But we are back with another young adult podcast, and we're here talking about some of a topic that I think everybody wants to hear about and talk about. So we got a couple guests with us today for the episode. This is Alex and Ruth. They're some of our young adults and youth leaders in our youth ministry, The Mix. They are going to share who they are, a little bit about themselves. So who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Ruth. A fun fact about me is I work at the hospital. It's a paid internship. And yeah, I'm 22 years old.
You're in nursing school.
I'm in nursing school, yes.
Yeah, fun fact about me, again, my name is Alex, and I've done a lot of different professions, I guess you could say. I've worked at Target, sold insurance. I got my CDL, I can drive trucks. And now I'm learning how to do HVAC and maintenance and stuff like that.
What kind of insurance did you sell?
Life insurance.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And I'm 26, so yeah.
All right. Hey, I'm going to ask you guys really quick so we know context. Today we're going to do a lot of question and answers about relationships. We just had a sermon about it. It was an incredible message, incredible service that we had last month. You can catch it on our YouTube at CITS Young Adults. But we basically talked about the idea of dating, how to date right, the filters of dating, how do you know who the right person is. And so in your mind, why is it so hard today to date? What's so hard about dating?
I would say one thing that I really struggled with dating because I've never had a boyfriend is like knowing if they're the right person. So like the person I'm talking to, is that person going to be the person I'm going to be with like forever? I think that's what made me hesitant on dating.
Yeah, I'll say just like expectations. Like, and is this person like, because sometimes that's a problem for me. I have I have a view of what it should look like.
Mm-hmm.
And when problems come in, you know what I'm saying, it doesn't look like that, sometimes I get mad. I don't know if I should share this, but like I've been told in the past like that I don't know how to like fight for a relationship. You know what I'm saying? I was told that in the past. So I guess that's another thing. So yeah, I'll say that, like the expectations. So yeah.
What's so hard about dating, Bella?
I think for me personally, I've been told in the past that I'm too serious, that I take things too serious, I take dating too serious. But my argument to that is, well, yeah, marriage is a serious thing, so I'm not going to take dating someone lightly. And I think for me personally, what's hard for me is because when I date, I maybe have a little bit of an old-fashioned way of thinking of like, okay, I'm getting to know you for the purpose of marriage, not for the purpose of being my boyfriend. So I'm like, any guy can be a boyfriend, but not any guy can be a husband or a father to our future children. So I think those would be the hard ones. But as culture, I think it's because everyone has differing perspectives of how dating should actually be. So it's hard for people to find people who have the same, opinions as them on dating.
Yeah, so in our service, we opened up with this illustration of basically, we live in Orlando where there's millions of people. And so if I wake up and I'm single, and context of this is I've been married for 14 years. I dated my wife for 4.5 years. So I haven't been single in 19 years plus. Okay, so yeah, I don't know.
Half your life, man.
Yeah, dating today is a whole lot different than 19 years ago when I dated. I will definitely disclaimer of say that. But if you wake up and you say, okay, there's 2.2 million people in my city, like I'm walking out, I'm looking for a relationship. How in the heck am I supposed to know? Like, who am I supposed to give my attention to, or how am I supposed to know if I'm supposed to date them? And so we open up this illustration about how to use these filters to find out potential people that you are able to date. I want to read these 8 filters really quick, and then we're just going to talk through them. We're going to take some Q&A about dating, about relationships in the podcast today. So some of these filters were, filter number 1 is, are they constantly and consistently pursuing Jesus? The Bible tells us not to be unequally yoked. And so if there's 2.2 million people in my city, if I go through these 8 filters, I talked about how you could weed out 95% of the population and know I'm not supposed to be dating them if you look at the filters of this life. And so just because someone's a Christian or call themselves a Christian also doesn't mean that they're consistently and constantly pursuing Jesus. So are they constantly pursuing Jesus? Are we equally yoked in our values and our relationship with God? Was filter number one. Filter number two is, how is your friendship? I think a lot of times we jump into dating prematurely, and we forget that the most important quality of a relationship is my friendship. And so we always think, well, when I get married and I can have sex, all my problems are going away. But it's easy to figure out how to have sex. Sometimes when hell breaks loose and you're struggling in your relationships, it's hard to find a friend, not a sex partner. And so the greatest quality that you want in your marriage one day is your friendship. So how is your friendship now is a great filter. How are their friends? We talked about the idea of if they surround themselves with the wrong type of people now, all of their friends are crazy people, then they're going to surround your family with crazy people one day. And so how are their friends now? How is their family? Every family has drama and trauma, and we talked about this. Every family has issues. There's not a perfect family. And so just because they have a rough family life doesn't mean I can't marry them, but I should be able to have a conversation about it. We should be able to talk about how we've grown, how we've become the person that we've become through our family and through our struggles. Have I been healed from past drama and family hurts? Number 5 was, how do they respond when they're tested? Every relationship is going to have fights. And do they fight to be right, or do they fight for resolution? We talked a lot about that in the service. What are their dreams? Do their dreams line up with your dreams for life? What does your family and your friends say? The Bible says in Proverbs 11:4 that where there's no counsel, the people fail. But in a multitude of counselors, there's safety. We talked about the last filter was, do you trust them? And so if I can't trust them, I probably shouldn't date them. So in all of those filters in the message, was there one that stood out that was like, hey, that was surprising to me, or it made me think, maybe I didn't think about that specific one as being a filter to date?
Yeah, for me, it was number 5. How did they respond when tested? Because for me, that's a two-way street. So yeah, I didn't really think about that. So when you preached about it, and
what stood out about it?
Yeah, like when I guess when it gets tough, or when it gets like when y'all have a disagreement, like how would you go about like talking it out, or just like a boundary was crossed? How would you approach the person? Talking it out, yeah. So, yeah,
Okay.
that one. How do you respond to it?
Ladies?
I would say the do you trust them? So number 8, because I think the specific, like, do you trust them? It goes multiple ways. Like, you need to be able to trust them in multiple areas. And so, like, for me in my past relationships, I would compare them to, like, you or, like, my stepdad or my brothers, because it's like, okay, if I can't call them, if, like, let's say, just, like, as an example, if my tire, like, goes out, do I trust them enough to actually call them to help me? Or would I actually want to call the other men who I'm really close to in my life? So I would say that one, I kind of knew that, but when you put it in the perspective of every area of them, like as a woman, do you trust every area of them as a man? That was like, yeah, that was really eye-opening.
Ruth?
I think how your friendship is with them, because you could be attracted to someone and how they serve the Lord, but if you could have a hard time holding a conversation with them, like having similar hobbies. For example, like mine would be like going to the gym, so I would want someone that shares the same hobbies. And
What do you guys think the most important quality of the person is? One quality.
Obviously, aside from like being Christian.
No,
and stuff.
one quality.
Just one quality.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're equally yoked. Okay, they're
Okay.
Christian. They can't fill out the application if they're not a Christian to date you. So they're a Christian, second most important quality. You know what you want to say, you can just say it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this will really count, but I'll say they better be a loyal person. Like, just
Sure.
would that count?
Loyalty.
Okay,
Quality.
yeah, it's a loyal person. Yeah.
Mine is a little serious, but because of where I'm going, they have to be willing to die for the gospel.
Okay, so
Yeah,
So
she
serious.
Iraq, bro.
Yeah, go ahead.
She got shot up.
go ahead, Ruth. Most important quality.
someone hot.
There you go. I was about to say.
Alright.
Thanks for better
Oh,
attractive,
bro.
okay.
I
Hey,
guess.
No,
it is-
because if
it-
they get into a car accident, I gotta make sure that they're
Nah, they
still
better be
willing.
loyal,
Like
son.
if they get into a car accident and their like face gets burned off or something crazy, they still better die for the gospel.
They
Like
get shot by a
Yeah.
Wait,
bazooka.
I want to do
Yeah.
a serious one because that made me sound really superficial.
No, it didn't.
no, it
Nah,
didn't.
I
Not at
would've-
all.
I
It
would've
was
said that.
honest.
That
You
was
gotta be
honest, yeah, it
attracted
was
to them.
honest.
Sometimes as Christians we make it, and we kind of downplay that. You
Yeah,
still got to
yeah,
be
yeah.
attracted.
No,
to
you
the
definitely
person.
still have to be
Yeah.
attracted to them.
I think I want someone who is very honest with me.
Okay. So y'all got any questions?
I have many questions.
Go
Yes,
for
I
it.
got
Let's just
some
go
too.
through. We got about 15 minutes. Let's go through as many of your questions. Bella has a list. I don't know these questions are going to be asked, so I'm going to try my best to answer.
Let's see. I have 5, 6, 7 questions. So I think the first one, what's the difference between love and lust?
Love and lust. Lust is what can I get out of you? Love is what can I do for you?
That's good.
And so lust is always thinking about how does this benefit me and how can I get something out of it? Love is I'm willing to sacrifice for your embetterment. And so even when we talk about marriage, in the message we talked about after you've been dating, like how do you know I'm supposed to marry this person? It's a big question. I've been dating for 3 years, but I just don't know. It's a big question. Am I supposed to get married? We talked about there's one biblical standard of knowing this is the person I'm supposed to get married to. And that was the Bible says that the man is supposed to love his wife as Christ loved the church. We see that Jesus died for the cross or died for the church. And it's easy to say, oh yeah, I would die for her. I would take a bullet for her. That's not what it means. It means die daily for her needs and for her betterment. So I'm willing to die to my flesh to support what she needs. So lust or love is, how am I benefiting from this? And is it about me or is it about my flesh? That's all lust. Love is, how is this pushing you where you're supposed to be without anything for me?
Yeah,
Quick
that's
answer.
Do you have-
Yeah, I have a question. So,
Ruth's questions scare me. I have no idea what she's going to ask.
in biblical dating, can you get to know multiple people at a time, or are you automatically like exclusive in the talking stage?
So there's phases of your relationship and phases of dating, okay? That really, how loyal would you want somebody to be to you? So if you've verbally said, we're getting to know each other, would you be okay with that person talking to other people?
Big facts.
I'm a jealous person. So if you've told me we're getting to know each other, then I want the exclusivity of you're only getting to know me right now. At least give me the benefit of the doubt of giving me some time. That's my personal thing. If you're flirting with a couple different, like again, it's how loyal do you want somebody to be to you? How do you act that way towards them? And so I guess, it depends on how serious you guys have gotten in the conversations. Like if it's like, hey, I think they're cute, but that's it. That's as far as we've got. Well, you could think a bunch of people are cute, sure. But if you've started having conversations and you've let them know that we're in a process of getting to know each other, like I surely wouldn't want to be with somebody that's telling me they want to get to know me, but they're also trying to get to know 5 or 6 people. I'm not trying to compete for a relationship. I'm trying to find who God wants for me, and who's gonna empower me and better me in my relationship with God and love me and support me. And if I feel like I got to compete for that, I probably will never trust you.
Big facts.
So
That's good.
one of the most important parts of a relationship is security. And if I'm scared that you're going to be talking to other people, like I'm not going to be secure in my conversations with you.
Yeah,
But
that makes sense.
there's different phases of that too. Like just because you say, hey, you're cute now I'm not allowed to talk to anybody else
Nah,
either.
yeah.
So there's different levels but when you've arrived to that place and you both know we're talking, then my personal opinion is I'm jealous. I would want you all for me, if that makes sense.
No, I appreciate that honesty too, because I think that's how everybody feels. PJ just said it on wax. So yeah, I agree 1,000% with what he said.
Yeah.
So all right, so you said we got like 15 minutes.
Just ask your question.
All right. So the main question I want to ask is, what would you say if you and your partner didn't stay pure together? Like y'all did the full deed one time. Would you say they have to
The
stay?
full deed is that having sex?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can say
Okay.
it.
they messed up and had sex. Would you
Okay.
say they need to take a break or just fully break up, or they can stay together but they have to like work it out? What would you say then?
So I think there has to be a consequence. I don't want to tell you that you have to break up, but I think there has to be a consequence and there has to be honesty. And so why did this happen and how did this happen?
Yeah.
And what are we going to do about it? And if one person is not willing to have the conversation of what are we going to do about it, they don't respect what I care about. And so if you've messed up, there's a reason why you messed up. There was a boundary that was broken. There was something that was broken. It was a time. It was a moment. It was a moment of weakness. If that happens, I'm not going to exclusively say, oh my God, you got to go break up. I don't know. Maybe you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if they're not at least willing to have a conversation about it and say, how do we prevent this from happening again? Acknowledging the mistake, getting accountability, and there has to be some sort of not punishment, but like consequence. And so maybe the consequences is we got to get more intentional discipleship in our life. And so we got to go open up ourselves to our pastors or to our leaders or somebody to let them know, hey, we're not withholding. There's no secrets. Like, this is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do from there? And then allowing them to speak into your life. There's probably some moments where they need to break up. Maybe there's some other moments where it's, hey, this is the consequence that needs to take place. So because of that, whatever it looks like. So I think it's a case by case thing,
Mm-hmm.
but I definitely think there's a consequence. And if my partner's wants to hide it and they say, well, don't tell anybody, I'm probably not going to trust them because if they want to hide stuff, they don't want the best for me.
Yeah.
If it hurt me and we messed up and that hurt my spiritual life and everything else, then like, hey, let's go get help.
Yeah.
Let's go get accountability. Let's have somebody speak into our life to make sure that we're both healthy, we're both whole, so that we can move forward.
Yeah. I have 2 questions, but
Go
I'll
for
start
it.
with the first one. So
You
this
actually have
is
6 more because you said you had
no.
7.
Some of these were already answered,
Okay.
so I'm trying to think of new ones. But let's say this has to deal with like calling, but more on the ends of like missionaries or people who have just not your average. Not saying like working in the business field is average, but like for me, I obviously am called to Iraq, and there are multiple people who I know who are my close friends who are called to overseas missions, or even people who are called to like just really intense like things for ministry. How do they decipher, like, if let's say I'm talking to someone and they are like, well, I'm called to be a lawyer or I'm called to be a doctor, but you do feel peace with that relationship, like there's no like red lights flashing, like this is not good. How would you approach dating then?
A lot of conversations, right? And so just because somebody's called to Iraq and somebody's called to be a lawyer, does that mean that they're not supposed to be together? No, but it creates some challenges, some conversations. Are you called to Iraq for 1 year?
Yeah.
Are you called to Iraq for 10 years? Are you called to live and die in Iraq for the rest of your life,
Yeah.
right? Are they willing to practice in other places? So there's a lot of conversations, I think, that go into it.
Yeah.
I don't think your occupation determines your calling. Your calling is separate from your occupation. And so I would start more of, do they have a heart for missions?
Yeah.
Like, do they give to missions? They want to give to missions. Would you be like in some of those conversations? And I would probably have those earlier on in dating because I don't want to waste my time if I know that my calling is going to be such a big thing or obviously more of an unusual thing than everybody else. And so, but just because they're called to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, or to be a business person, or to, open a Chick-fil-A one day, like there's seasons and times of that too. And so it's the timing and asking the Lord, like, am I supposed to be there forever? Am I supposed to be there for a year? Am I supposed to be there for 3 years? Is my family supposed to be there for a month out of the year? And we're supposed to do those things. All those things play into it. And so I think the bigger thing is willing to admit each other's calling and willing to say, like, how could we see this playing out?
Yeah.
You don't know what the next 5 years of your life looks like exactly. I don't know what the next 5 years of my life looks like. And if I think I do, then I'm sometimes playing God in that too. So I wouldn't say that it disqualifies me from dating someone, but I also can't ignore the fact that our life might be going 2 different places.
Yeah.
So we should be definitely having conversations about it.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
So in like one of the most romantic biblical stories, Jacob waited 14 years for Rachel.
He also lived to be longer than 82.
Facts.
So say you got a sign from the Lord, and like, should you go full Jacob and wait that long to be with that person, or
Yeah, I
how
was
long
told some
should
crazy
you?
stories, bro.
Yeah.
How long should you wait until?
Well,
you
the card that
see
you
other
just
people?
played, we can't argue with. If the Lord told you, we can't argue with that, right? my challenge of that would be, did the Lord really tell you? And you got to wrestle with that. And at the end of the day, you got to live with that decision. Did the Lord really tell you? If God gave you a promise, you need to run at that promise 100%, no matter what it is, no matter what it time requires of you, or no matter what it is. If God told you, that's what God's put in your heart, you need to submit to that calling and run with 100%, or you're never going to be fulfilled running away from the call of God. However, you also got to know this is what God called me to if he's calling me to do that. So why are you waiting? Because they're in another relationship? That's probably not God telling me to wait for them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So nothing contradicts the Bible. And so why did God tell you to wait to get married 10 years from now because he wants you to be single and run in your calling and run in your purpose? That's possible. Right? That doesn't contradict what the Bible tells us. If I'm able to keep a pure life, actually Paul tells us it's better to be single than it is to be married. And so there's multiple things there. So when you play the God told me card, if it doesn't contradict the Bible, I can't argue with you.
Yeah.
Now, if it, again, contradicts the Bible, if somebody's married and then you're saying, but God's telling me I'm supposed to be with them, so they need to get a divorce that we can be together, there's a lot of contradictions to the Word of God, and I don't think that's the voice of God that you're listening to. So, yeah.
My next question is, how do you deal with a friendly girl, if you know what that means?
Flirtatious girl, you call it what
Pretty
it
much,
is.
yeah.
If she's, if she's friendly with you, is she friendly with everybody? Right? So there's you don't have to, that's just like what I'm thinking of when I'm like, if she's willing to be so friendly with you and flirtatious with you, how is she responding? I don't want my wife being friendly and flirting with other guys, right? And so there's those things. So how do you deal with it?
Well, I know what I would do. I just wanted your response.
Yeah, personalities are personalities.
Yeah.
I think it depends on what the level of the relationship is, and there's some other things there. So am I dating a girl and now I'm realizing, hey, then I'm probably having a conversation and saying, hey, I got to take my own motives in, and am I just a jealous person or whatever? Because one of the most unattractive things in any relationship is an insecure person.
Yeah.
So if I'm taking my insecurity and I'm releasing that out on you, that's very unattractive, whether it's a guy or a girl, right?
Yeah.
But there's different things there. Like, if somebody's just flirting to flirt with a bunch of guys, like, I probably don't want to be with that person. So I'm looking at their life and looking at their character, and if I want to have a conversation with them or want to date them, I don't leave things up for guessing, right? Like, I'm just going to ask and have a conversation. Are you flirting with these people? Are you not flirting with these people? And just having a conversation.
Yeah.
I had a question and it literally just like slipped. My gosh, I can't remember, and it was a really good question.
You guys got any more?
Yeah, while she's doing that, I got one.
Go for it.
So would you date someone that's new to Christ? Like, for example, I don't know, like 6 months to a year. Would you date someone like that?
So Roxy and I did not date until the story with Roxy and I is we met at Publix. I was a Christian. She was not. She came out of a bad relationship. One of our friends, Dan, liked her. And so they started hanging out, and I was kind of the third. He was an atheist that became saved by coming to our church and kind of through me witnessing to him. Then he started to like Roxy. And we kind of started hanging out in groups and all this other stuff. So she was not a Christian at that point. He's actually the one that invited her to come to church, which ultimately led her into giving her life to Jesus. I would say probably 4 or 5 months into that is when we started dating. So every person matures a little bit different in their relationship with God. So just because they've been a Christian for 6 months or they've been a Christian for 5 years, I know people that have been a Christian for 5 years that are more immature in their relationship with God. So for that, it depends on who they are and are they mature. And just because they're a Christian doesn't mean they're on on where I am. So I don't want to be unequally yoked, meaning I don't want to be way up here and then somebody's way down here, because at the end of the day, they're gonna pull me down. It's easier for them to pull me down, but I don't have a time frame.
So more like spiritual maturity in the person.
Yeah.
Okay, I remembered my question. So let's say, or I'll just say it. What if your boyfriend, your girlfriend doesn't agree with your purity boundaries?
They're done.
That's
non-negotiable.
That was my answer.
Yeah, non-negotiable. I think
just for the listeners, for the podcast.
I think it's a non-negotiable. If you say I want to be pure and they disagree with that, how will they respect anything that you want in your life if they can't respect that? And so it's a non-negotiable. Then I would say that we're not supposed to be
So the
together.
correct response, if like one of your boundaries, hey, I don't want to drive in the same car, like period, point blank, until we're married, and they're like, well, like why? And they like challenge that, and they don't understand that. How would you respond in that case of someone like kind of challenging that more out of like, well, that doesn't really make sense. Like if they didn't really grow up with those, because like at the mix, any student that's grown up here knows the PJ rules, knows, and if you're a young adult, you should know why those are in place, and it's more out of protection for your purity. But what if there's someone who hasn't grown up in that, who didn't, and doesn't really understand that? How would you like approach that conversation?
Well, are they willing to listen to why it's important to you?
Yeah,
Or are they just saying, that's stupid, I don't care about that?
yeah,
Well, if something that I care about you're saying is stupid, whether it's a
Yeah.
rule or a boundary that I want to live my life by or not, then you're ridiculing who I am,
Yeah.
which so I probably don't want to be with that person. However, just because somebody didn't grow up or maybe grow up in church or maybe they're newer or whatever,
Yeah.
at the mix we talk about it a lot, right? Because purity is not something that you just
Throw
happen
around,
to
yeah.
be one day. Like you have to fight for purity at a young age. So
yeah,
at the mix in our youth ministry, we talk about it a lot with our middle school and our high school. So you grew up in that. So it's not, maybe that's foreign to them. Oh my God, you can't ride in a car together. Well, why is that important to you? If they're showing like, I care about what you care about and I'm trying to understand that, that's a difference than I don't care,
yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they don't have to understand, but are they willing to understand what yours are? And that's not just riding in a car
Yeah.
or purity boundaries, but anything in life.
yeah. I have more questions, but I'll let Ruth and Alex go.
Let me see. So say you met someone in church and you guys are both equally yoked, but somehow you're unhappy. How do you know you're in a toxic relationship?
That's good.
I think sometimes, I mean, abuse in relationships is real. Like probably
Yeah.
we see it more now than what we've never seen it because we live in a corrupt world, right? And so, how would you know if you're in a toxic relationship? I think if the person's always trying to manipulate you, then it's probably a toxic relationship. I think this is why it's important to have mentors in your life and
Yeah.
people that are speaking in your life to also see blind spots, because there's things that you may rationalize or just not see because you're so focused and you want to be in this and your relationship is whatever and you love this person or you're whatever, you may not see certain things. And so I think that's why it's so important to have open relationship, like with mentors and stuff, and letting them know like, this is where my relationship is. This is where this is. And so how do you know? By seeing signs, I guess,
Yeah.
but sometimes people are blind to the signs and that's how they get stuck in some of these conversations.
Yeah.
So one, you got to love yourself, right? If you don't love yourself, how's anybody else going to love you?
Yeah.
And if you don't respect yourself, how's anybody else going to respect you as well? And so you got to learn how to love yourself and respect yourself to know like, hey, I don't want to be treated this way. So this is a toxic thing, or this is a manipulation thing because you're taking what I want and you're twisting it for your benefit. At the end of the day, I want to be with somebody that loves me, that has my best interest. And if that person doesn't, whether it's toxic or it's manipulation or it's whatever, there's so many people in the world. Like I can just go find somebody else.
Yeah.
Like,
Can I add something?
sure.
Yeah. I also think like as a guy or as a young woman, if you feel like you have to start rationalizing their actions, if you're like, oh, well, maybe they were just hungry, maybe they were just not happy, maybe they just didn't get enough sleep, that should be your first sign that you need to find someone to take this
Yeah.
to, because rationalization, it makes it seem like you did something wrong or that you're trying to defend their actions, and that's when you should start questioning what kind of relationship you're in. If you have to rationalize their actions a lot, then definitely you need to like take that to a trusted friend or a trusted mentor. But yeah, I would add that as well as like a practical.
Probably have time for one more piece. If you guys have one more piece.
Please make it a good one, Bella. Make it a really good one.
Why don't you go?
No, I asked the only ones I wanted to.
Oh.
To be honest.
Okay. Do you have any more?
I have one more. Is a first date kiss okay? What is like the boundary in a first date?
A lot of things play into it, right? Even age and some of those things play into it. And so when you're asking the how far is too far line is, what are you thinking about after that kiss? Are you wanting more? Is it causing you to strive for more? Is it causing you to experience even emotionally, like, I want to take it to a next step? Then you probably have to slow down. And so that whole question of like, is it okay if what's too far? I would say it's always easier to play it safe because you can never erase something that's been done. You can always add more. Like, hey, I think we're allowed to kiss, or I think we're allowed to do this, or I think we're allowed to do it. You can always add more, but you can't take away something that you've opened. The Bible's very clear about opening love and arising love too early in a season. And so with physical boundaries, we got to understand that our emotions are real, our hormones are real, and we got to make sure that those things aren't the ones that's controlling our decisions and our actions. So I can't say first date kiss is wrong and sinful, or don't do it, or yes, do it. Some of it depends on, are you being led by your emotions or your hormones, or
the
not?
Holy Spirit.
Or not. I'll just say or not.
When did you have your first kiss with Roxy?
Trying to think. It wasn't.
It's like on my first date.
No, it wasn't. We didn't kiss on our first date.
It was
I wouldn't advise our first date again. 19 years ago. Okay.
Dang.
I would
You
not
remember.
advise a movie as a first date. Ours was.
I agree.
So our first, actually, there was kind of two moments that was like our first and second date. And so our first real date was we went to Cracker Barrel
Oh
to
gosh.
eat.
I would
And
be
then
like,
we went and-
you're not the one.
We went and watched the movie Talladega Nights.
Oh my
Talladega
God.
Nights.
And she's still with me, okay?
That just
That's
aged
Ricky
you.
Bobby, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Shake
this
and
was
bake.
19 years ago.
Long
So,
time
Shake and
ago.
bake.
and yeah, I loved Cracker Barrel. Like, I'm different than I was 19 years ago, I guess.
Oh,
But
gosh.
definitely wouldn't have picked that now.
Did you give her
but
flowers?
that was what we did. I did have flowers. I picked her up.
Okay, but when
but
did
our
you
our
like?
quick first date after that, like, I don't remember exactly which one was, like, they were within the same period of time, was we did a picnic, which I do think
Aw.
is a great first date. We met at a park, had a picnic set up, music was playing. She
What
had told
song
me
was
about
playing?
probably Casey and JoJo,
Fair
probably. She told me about all the, like, her favorite, like, foods or whatever, and so, like, I didn't like sushi at the time. Now it's my favorite, but I had sushi for her. We had subs. We I had an array of like $100 worth of food, or
Wow.
of all like stuff.
So generous.
Take notes, Alex.
First
Take notes.
Kiss
They were friends. before.
was not on a date. Our first kiss was in the Publix parking lot. We both work at Publix, so it was after work one night. So it wasn't.
Y'all
on,
already dating at this point?
We were dating. Yes.
For how long?
Yes. Well,
Yeah, that's what she
I
asked.
never asked Roxy to be my girlfriend, so there's not a date that I said, Roxy, will you be my girlfriend?
That's
What
crazy.
happened with us is we just
I respect it.
Yeah, we were always hanging out. We started hanging out in groups. Again, this kid, Dan, liked her. It was evident they weren't going anywhere, so we kept hanging out. This is months has gone by. We're talking. We're working. We work together at Public, so we're talking at work. We're hanging out in groups. She's now attending our church, and so we're hanging out at church, and we're just hanging out all the time. And then somebody at Publix one night says, "How long you guys been dating?" And we look at each other and we're like, "It's a good question." Like, there was never a moment that I said, "Will you be my girl?" I don't advise this now. That's just how it happened for us.
Yeah.
There was never a moment where I said, "Hey, will you be my girlfriend?" We were just always hanging out, and so people assumed we were dating, and so we just said, "I guess we kind of are dating."
But y'all
so
knew y'all had something.
we had
going on.
we actually preached a sermon in our Sunday service a couple years ago called "Define the Relationship," and it was
Yeah.
literally in Publix in the freezer aisle. We were blocking one night at work, and we said, we have to define our relationship because everybody's asking us how long we've been dating. And then we made a decision that, yes, we are dating there. But we kind of just said, we've been dating for a couple months because we didn't really know. Because there was, again, not a time where I said, will you be my girlfriend?
Yeah.
I've been inside that Publix too, just letting you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been inside that. I
That's
know
Really?
What
where
was
it's at.
it?
Great place.
What when you guys had your first kiss? Was it like, oh my gosh? Was it like fireworks were
Magical.
going off?
No, I mean, it was a
I'm
kid,
kidding.
so
I'm
yeah.
kidding.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Showing
No.
the fireworks in the background.
Was it a
Wow.
biblical peck?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was?
It was. It
Oh,
wasn't.
wow,
We didn't-
that's
They
crazy.
weren't out
It
here
was.
like
Ah.
notebook style,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
in the
it
rain.
It wasn't crazy.
That's
That's
I
cute.
guess
That's
that's.
funny. Wait, you have one more question?
It's fine.
Go ahead.
Sure? Nah, go ahead.
Oh, let me open up my phone. Sorry. Oh, how do you get over someone you never dated?
Ooh.
So the hard part with this question is, if you have to get over them, you emotionally did date.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe you weren't physically boyfriend or girlfriend, or maybe
Yeah.
it was never, that's why expectation is so important. That's
Yeah.
why when you are going on a first date, like, no, hey, this is a date, or hey, when she
Yeah.
said, are we exclusively talking, or am I allowed to talk to other people? That's why defining what you are in all phases. If it's, hey, we're just friends, let's define we're just friends. Or, hey, we're going to get to know each other. Like, let's define what it is.
Yeah.
And then let's define what it is, because it saves like
all that. Yeah.
all the assuming, right? And so if you have to
Yeah.
get over somebody, you are emotionally dating them. And so how you get over them is the same way you have to do if you did date somebody. And so it's honestly giving it to God is kind of an easy answer to that. I don't know. I'd probably find an ugly picture of him and put it on my phone and be like, "You're ugly anyway," like all the time.
Right. Don't do that. That's
But
what you
at
don't
19 years, I don't know what I would have done then. But I think you got to do the same way you were if you did date somebody, because emotionally you did date somebody. So the first off is giving it to the Lord. And then you honestly have to begin to understand, like, this wasn't God's plan for my life, in order to heal and in order to see more. And then again, getting the right people around you to speak life into you. And so is there something that reminds you of this person? There may be things you need to get rid of in your life. And so, like, for instance, if I know girls that, like, they still have a sweater that a guy gave them and they no longer date anymore, but then they think about it all the time, like, well, you have his sweater. Like, why do you wear his sweater if you're trying to get over him?
That's
like
real.
some little stuff like that. Like, so you got to kind of look and say, hey, do I need to sweep anything out of there? Do I need to unfollow him on social media? Like, not to be dramatic or not to be like, I hate you or cause anything, but like, at the end of the day, you got to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And so whatever that looks like.
Yeah, that's good.
Any other last minute thoughts?
No, I was gonna say we should all leave a piece of advice.
Go for it.
For our dating demographic, which we're all singles. So.
All my singles, give dating advice. Ready? This is why culture is the way that it is.
No,
Because the singles are the experts on dating.
We could give them practical piece of advice when you're single, and like how to stay content when you're single and not rush the season of singleness. Alex, you can go first.
All right. I don't believe anybody's ever truly ready, but I would say before that time comes, know what you want for the most part. Like how you said in the other one, or was it Derek? I don't know. But have your boundaries, your non-negotiables. Obviously, a woman, man of God. Obviously you're not gonna have sex before marriage. Have your boundaries and stuff, and know who you are too, bro. Like, get all the impurities out. Heal yourself and all that stuff. So I'll say that.
I would say be secure in your relationship with the Lord, because when you start dating, there could be a lot of things that can be compromised. But if your relationship with God is good and you're grounded, then nothing else can hinder that.
Yeah, I would say there's like this phrase that goes around a lot for like people who are single, and it's like, well, as soon as you are happy with being single and like don't desire a relationship, that's when your man or woman of God will come. And I feel like that's like so not true. Like, don't feed into that lie, like, well, as soon as I don't even desire a relationship, I'm gonna be able to have a man or woman of God. It's up to the Lord. So being content in singleness is not about not desiring a relationship. It's about trusting the Lord's timing, that in his timing he'll open the door for you to be able to meet that person. So being content in singleness is more about not rushing the process that the Lord has you in. Don't rush it. Just be present with where you are, because one day you're going to be married and have kids running around and not even have time to like spend time with the Lord. So enjoy this time and allow the Lord to actually use this time to prune whatever he needs to prune. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, I'd say two things. Number one is, if you are single, get whole single. Again, if you're not happy, if you're not secure in your relationship with God, it's not going to change because a person comes in your life. A person isn't a puzzle piece to your life. God is the missing piece in your life. Your relationship with God is the most important thing. And so if you are dealing with trauma, if you're dealing with unforgiveness, if you're dealing with greed, if you're dealing with lust, if you're dealing with pornography, get whole right now as a single person, because two people that get together that are not whole do not make a whole person. And then number two, I would say, actually, I just forgot what I was going to say. So I'll go back to my first one is get whole as a single person. And get whole, get healthy. And then the other one is knowing that it could change in a day. You're not trying to meet a bunch of people. You're trying to meet one person. So I hear this all the time at our church. Well, there's no young adults here. There's no young adults here. There's nobody here. Well, it only takes one guest, 1 week that just moved here, and there's a couple that is dating now that just happened to. So I was literally having a conversation with a young adult girl. She's like, there's nobody here. And then like the next month there was a guest. This has been a while now, and now they're dating. And so I always remind her, you never know when that moment's going to be.
Mhm.
So like, be ready at any moment. Like,
Yeah.
not that you're looking and gawking out everyone, but at
Yeah,
any
yeah.
moment, like I met my wife at Publix. We both worked there, so we saw each other on a regular basis. But like the conversation that like made us see each other or whatever differently was one day. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that would be it. You never know when it's going to take place. So
I heard a quote one time where it says, "You can choose your spouse, but your children don't get to choose their parent."
Parents, facts.
And that stuck out with me.
Mhm.
Amen.
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 hey,
amen.
we're going to do a part 2 of our question and answers here in just a little bit. If you got any questions, we'd love to be able to answer them on our podcast. You can just DM us at CITS Young Adults on Instagram, or it's Church of the Sun YA. What is it? What is our handle?
CITS Young Adults.
CITS Young Adults.
CITS Young Adults. You can always DM us there. We're there on Instagram. Love to be able to answer questions or connect with you in any way. All of our services, we meet the first Tuesday of every month, are on YouTube. So catch them. We got a community that is growing, that loves the Lord and trying to grow in all areas and get to know Him more. So love for you to join us any way possible.
And
Peace
you'll
out.
never know if you come. You may find the one.
They may
Just
be
need
there.
One
He
person
may be.
through the door.
He or she may be here. at CITS
Somebody
Young
might be
Adults.
waiting for you. Come visit. Love you guys. Bye bye.